American consumer confidence just hit an all-time low. Not a recent low, not a pandemic low, an all-time low since 1952. That's a 74-year survey, and we just broke the worst reading ever recorded. We're worse than 2022. We're worse than 2008. We're worse than the financial crisis. Americans are more scared right now than they have been in 7 decades. And nobody is talking about this. The stock market is near all-time highs while consumer sentiment is at all-time lows. That disconnect is about to destroy everything. Let me show you exactly what's happening. The University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index came in at 44.8 in May 2026. The consensus was for 48.9. We missed badly. But here's the thing that matters. That 44.8 is the lowest reading in the entire history of this survey dating back to 1952. 74 years of data. 7 decades. And we just hit the floor. The previous worst was in mid-2022 when the index hit 50.2. We're now 5.4 points below the previous worst reading ever. We've gone lower than the 2008 financial crisis. Lower than 2001 after September 11th. Lower than 2011 when Congress nearly defaulted on U.S. debt. Lower than anything else in American history since this survey started. Think about what that means. Americans are more scared right now than they were when banks were failing and the financial system was collapsing. More scared than when unemployment was at 10%. More scared than when the economy was actually in recession. But we're not in recession right now according to the official data. The economy is supposedly growing. Unemployment is supposedly low. Corporations are supposedly making record earnings. Yet Americans are terrified. That terror is real. That fear is valid. And it's based on something deeper than just economic statistics. It's based on lived experience. It's based on what's actually happening to real people's lives. Here's why Americans are so scared. Number 1, real wages are declining. For the first time in 3 years, real average hourly earnings went negative. Inflation outpaced wage growth for the first time since 2023. Americans are making more money nominally, but their purchasing power is declining. They're getting poorer even though they're earning more. That's the cruelest form of loss because it feels like a gain that's actually a loss. You got a 2% raise, but inflation was 3.5%. Mathematically, you lost 1.5% of purchasing power. Try feeding your family on that math. Number 2, savings are collapsing. The personal saving rate fell to 2.6% in May 2026. That's the lowest level since mid-2022. Americans don't have a buffer anymore. One unexpected expense, and they're in credit card debt. One job loss, and they're homeless. The safety net that used to exist doesn't exist anymore. People are living paycheck to paycheck despite having jobs, despite having income. They're one crisis away from financial catastrophe, and they know it. That knowledge creates constant anxiety. That constant anxiety shows up in consumer sentiment at 44.8. Number 3, inflation is not going away. April CPI rose 3.8% year over year, the highest since May 2023. Energy is up 28% year over year. Gasoline prices are exploding. Every time Americans go to the grocery store, prices have gone up again. Every time they fill up their gas tank, they're paying more. Every time they pay rent or mortgage, the cost is higher. Inflation isn't slowing down. It's accelerating. And with Kevin Warsh as the new hawkish Fed chair, rates are staying high. Americans understand intuitively that their purchasing power is being destroyed and there's no relief coming. Number 4, the wealth effect is breaking. Americans have 47% of their wealth in stocks. When stocks crash, which they eventually will, Americans will feel 47% of their wealth disappear. The stock market near all-time highs is propping up consumer sentiment for some people. But most Americans don't have significant stock holdings. Most Americans are renters or mortgage payers living paycheck to paycheck. For them, there is no wealth effect. There's only the crushing reality of rising costs and stagnant wages. That's why sentiment is at an all-time low. Not because of abstract economic concerns. Because of the reality of their daily lives getting harder. Number 5, job security is eroding. The divergence between household employment and non-farm payrolls is widening. Household employment is declining while official payrolls look stable. That means layoffs are happening, but they're being masked by job creation in specific sectors. Americans feel the layoffs. They see friends losing jobs. They hear rumors at work. They know the job market is softening even if the official numbers don't show it yet. That fear is rational. That fear is based on pattern recognition. And that fear is showing up in consumer sentiment at historic lows. That here's the thing that scares me most about this data. Consumer sentiment at 44.8 is a leading indicator. It predicts future consumer spending. It predicts recession. When consumers feel this bad, they stop spending. When they stop spending, companies stop hiring. When companies stop hiring, unemployment rises. When unemployment rises, spending collapses more. That's the recession cycle. We're seeing the first warning sign right now. Consumer sentiment at all-time lows. The recession hasn't happened yet officially, but the consumer is already in recession. Mentally, they're already pulling back. They're already preparing for the worst, and that's the danger. Consumer spending is 70% of GDP. If consumers pull back, the entire economy contracts. The stock market can stay near all-time highs for a while on earnings momentum and AI enthusiasm. But eventually consumer spending matters. Eventually the economy feels the impact of terrified consumers. Eventually corporations realize they can't sell products to people who are scared and broke. That's when the market crashes. That's when earnings disappoint. That's when the disconnect between stocks at all-time highs and consumer sentiment at all-time lows finally snaps. And when it snaps, it will snap violently. The official recession may not start for months. But the consumer recession is already here. Americans are already scared. Americans are already pulling back. Americans are already preparing for the worst. That preparation is showing up in the data. Consumer sentiment at 44.8. Savings rate at 2.6%. Real wages declining. Inflation accelerating. Job security eroding. These aren't abstract concerns. These are the lived reality of American households. And when you look at this data, you understand why consumer sentiment is at an all-time low. Not because Americans are irrational, because Americans are responding rationally to genuine deterioration in their economic situation. If you have stock market exposure, you need to understand this moment. Consumer sentiment at all-time lows is a flashing red warning light. Not a reason to panic sell today, but a reason to prepare. A reason to reduce risk. A reason to get defensive. A reason to move money into cash and bonds before the consumer pullback hits corporate earnings. Because it will hit. Consumer sentiment this low always leads to recession. This survey has been predicting economic turns for 74 years. And right now it's predicting something very dark. Pay attention to that signal. Don't ignore it. Your portfolio depends on it.